right, well, we will call this to order. I do want to say upfront that while the meeting is open to the public, we are not receiving public comments. I also want to remind us all of our acknowledgements that want to acknowledge the ancestral, cultural, traditional, and ceded territory of the Shoshone and the Northern Paiute people on which we are today. I did want to comment that I was recently in Washington, D.C. and last time we took our kids there, it was 2 weeks before they opened. The Smithsonian opened the museum. We missed it, and then this time we actually got it. And I just want to say, wow, unbelievable. And at one point I saw the flags from all of the tribes, so hundreds of tribes across the country. I saw the Paiute flag. Anyway, I thought about our land. So if you're in Washington, D.C., I encourage this.
I have. Yeah.
The architecture is
Yeah.
stunning. The displays were just really incredible. So, welcome to everyone. Do you want to do an introduction?
I would love to, yeah.
Please.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we are so honored to have our new council liaison here today, Commissioner Councilwoman Tanya Heath, who was appointed by City Council or by the mayor and then appointed by City Council to be our liaison. So we have here. And just today, actually, I gave her and the other new council member, Colin Nash, an overview of our department, and we had a chance to ask questions and they've also been seeing me a lot, which I'll tell you all about in my director's meeting. But anyway, this is our commission. They are working hard on the work we do. So, any questions for her, or do you have any questions for the commission?
No, I don't. I'm very pleased to be here. I look forward to getting to know all of you. Make sure I remember everyone's names and where you work and all that good stuff. But it's great that you're serving on this commission. I think it's really important. And I was actually thrilled that I got to be the liaison. So Colin, that kind of draws straws, and I was very happy that I got into history. So very pleased to be here. And if I can be of any assistance, let me know. But otherwise, I'm just here to listen. And if there are issues that need to kind of go back to City Council for us to be apprised of, we had a conversation today, just things that we need to be thinking about as we move forward. But otherwise, I'm just here to sit and get to know what's top of mind for all of you.
Do you want the commission to introduce themselves?
I'm just gonna do that. So Gabby, let's start on this side and we'll work around through just and then Sophie and Tyler, as soon as I forget to include you, then please holler at me. Go ahead, Gabby.
I'm Gabby Thompson. I have a background in history and have done some stuff with the Arts and History Department years ago for collecting like oral histories, and then also worked with a nonprofit, Preservation Idaho, for a time where we worked closely with the city of Boise. And then I currently work with a nonprofit called One Refugee, where we support college students with a refugee background navigating high school or college, excuse me.
Yeah.
Sometimes high school. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That's fantastic.
I'm Melissa Baum, as established organizing power, slightly in emergency communication sometimes, but mostly in marketing and brand communication, stuff like that. My background in the arts is I have a master's in English literature. I do. So I'd love to come back from like kind of the technical side of my work too, my arts background. And I think this is my second year. I should check my dates. I don't know. I think it's my second year or third.
You were the COVID child.
I'm the COVID child.
Yeah.
We all are.
Okay.
I can't. So. I'm Chris Clegg.
I was on the Arts and History Advisory Team for years and became a commissioner in 21. Very big supporter of the arts in Boise. During the day, I work at HP. I manage a graphics benefit area for the employees and do a lot of nonprofit work.
I'm staff. I'm a Tiffany Bond, and I started the public art program and ran that for 20 years and in the cultural plan for 7 years. Almost 7 years.
That's John Hand, and I worked with Chris at HP for a long time. I have a history background as well. And I studied Latin American and women's history primarily, and so that's my interest. Stumbled from history into high tech. I still don't understand how. But now I work at Boise State in student affairs. And we should really talk about that too.
Yeah.
So anyway, welcome.
Hi, I'm incoming seniors in Timberline High School, and I got to be non-voting students commissioner member after Sophie, who's in Zoom right now. I really enjoy history, so I was glad that I got into this commission.
Very nice to meet you.
I'm Jillian. I am the executive assistant for Arts History, and I just started here in January. And so maybe I'll take over real quick before those two down there, because the commissioners might be, let's go to the screen and then we can go to the other two.
Okay. Sophie?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Sophie, and I just graduated from Boise High, so I'm like the outgoing like youth commissioner, and then Catherine will take over, I think in August, right? Yes, maybe.
Yes.
And I just like have always really been interested in like arts and history, and like just kind of stumbled upon like the commission and just thought it sounded really interesting. So it's been super fun to like be a part of it and learn just about different things and different projects, and like there's a lot of really cool stuff going on that it's just fun to like be somewhat a part of. So yeah.
Thanks, Sophie. Tyler?
Yeah, I'm Tyler Powers. I am actually a deputy city attorney with the city of Boise and provide legal assistance to the Arts and History Department in whatever way they need.
Nice to meet you, Tyler.
Is it okay if I
Go
just-
for it.
So for the commissioners and also for Councilwoman Haney Keith, we have two of our newest, actually our twoest. I've been talking a lot the last couple of days, just so you guys know, and my mouth is working quite well. These are the two newest members of our department. You guys know we've been working so hard to get staffed up. So we have Hannah Williamson and Jamil Shirley, and I'll let them both introduce themselves and tell you what they're doing with their department.
I also wonder if maybe you want to move to this side.
Yeah, we should like stand over.
Yeah.
Okay, what are there? You might have been okay.
I can lean in.
Sure.
Transition over.
Yeah, Hannah, you're in the screen, so there you go. Here, this is the finish. Okay. You want to come first?
I'm Hannah Williamson. We just moved here from Spokane. I recently got my bachelor's in leadership in the arts, and I accepted the position as Public Works Public Art Project Coordinator. And I'm living between two worlds, public works and public art, working with Public Works to develop projects to highlight their environmental and climate change initiatives. Super excited.
I'm Jamil Shirley, and this is my 4th week here at the city of Boise. I'm coming to the city from Smithsonian Aerospace Museum, so familiar, amazing Smithsonian Museum. And I've been to the Native American also. I have a background in graphic design originally. I was a graphic designer for 10 years. And then I got into conservation and museum work when we moved to DC. We've been there for the last decade. And I worked for a private conservation company for 3 years and was at Smithsonian for 5 years in the collections department, working on $1 billion renovation of the museum on the National Mall. And so I have kind of a very like arts and design and museums and care and conservation. So this position here, that my position is the cultural assets program manager. So care and conservation and cataloging and maintenance of the collection are my role. So very happy to be here.
Welcome.
What brought you both to Boise?
Yeah.
My family lived here 4 years ago about. My husband was the assistant women's soccer coach at Northwest Nazarene. And we moved away and have just been trying to find our way back. And everything aligned for both of us to find jobs here. And yeah, we love Boise, so it's really good to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
My husband was calling me. I was like, he's like, there's winds coming. Where are you? My husband and I moved here. He accepted the position. He's a lieutenant colonel in the National Guard. And he accepted a position here with the state. And he's the battalion commander of the 145th Brigade Support Battalion. That's his weekend job, and Monday through Friday job is at Gowan Field as the USPFO, G8 and the J. So all of that is like budget. He's coming, the military budget and battalion command. So that was the impetus for moving, but we love it here. Long story, my grandmother lived here. I never got to visit her, but I feel like kind of a coming home to see where she lived. She was in Mountain Home. So I'm like, oh, this is my grandmother's. So it's very cool to sort of
That's awesome.
complete a family history and get to see where she lived. And she loved being here.
Well, that's very cool. I coincidentally had lunch with one of the architects on the Smithsonian when I was back there. It's shocking, the areas I think shocking what they're doing. I mean,
It's a massive.
like, how do you spend $1 billion? That is how you spend it.
Yes.
It's amazing. We'll have to,
Incredible.
we'll have to, let's talk about that sometime. Amanda, we were just doing some intros, which you missed, but.
Sad about that. So I'm Amanda Ashley on the commission. I'm the director of the School of the Arts at Boise State, where I get to work with many of you wonderful humans. And I'm also a professor of urban studies and community development at the School of Service.
Yeah.
Well, and then who are you?
Oh, did you just pick that up outside?
Okay, I need
I did at Elm Grove Play Camp, which is what we came from. We had a swing event at the natatorium, but it got canceled. So.
Oh, that's.
I want my kids in Elm Grove Play Camp next year, so I'll get with you on your tips for.
The tip is to do it 1 minute, 1 second after.
All right, well then let's go ahead and get into our agenda. Thanks everyone for it's always good to get a little context about the people that we work with. So could I entertain a motion from any of the commission about the minutes from our last meeting? Give it a roll.
Love to approve minutes.
Second. And any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Excellent. So, Jeff,
Yes.
I think you're up.
Yeah, it's. While I'm pulling this up, I guess I'd like to ask, the commission, just, very informally, I probably need to share, like, do share screen. Right? Like, maybe that. How the format of the new memos is working for you, any recommendations, changes that you would like to see?
For me personally, I like it. I like the focus on the accomplishments and those priority statements. It's pretty crisp and easy to follow the template. I mean, that it's easy to follow, so I just appreciate that.
And the commission asks.
Yes, super.
And I liked them being called out in our email too.
Yeah.
I think that helped.
That's great.
So thank you.
And Jennifer, can I, and I want to just point out one more thing, while we're giving kudos, I want to say thanks to Jillian for having the room set and everything, because I don't, I know we had some technical challenges and stuff in the past, and it was just really great to have, so. Thank you.
Great. All right, can everybody on the screen see the, I'm sorry, everybody online see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. So if anybody does have any additional feedback on the memos, how we're sort of the changes, a few of the evolutions that we're undergoing, we would love to hear those. We, don't want to unilaterally like shove anything down your throat. We're just trying to listen to some of the feedback you gave us about how you want to be involved while also trying to streamline things on staff end, so that the expectations are clear from our people as well. So always open to hearing your feedback. I'd love to hear if there are things that we could do better, always. So just wanted to give you a little bit of update on what we've been doing here. And I was so glad that Chairman Hand brought up the American Indian Museum in, which isn't that what they call it? Smithsonian Museum of the American Indian.
Yeah, I always like forget about this. I always like forget the cadence of the language of it, but
I think that's.
I think that's right. I was literally just on it, I always days ago looking at, there's actually a wonderful online collection there as well. So if you aren't going to DC anytime soon, you certainly can go online because they've put many of their collections online. Absolutely wonderful. In fact, Councilwoman Haney Keith actually saw a couple of images from that last night. And so I'm glad that you brought that up. We were very honored to be asked by City Council to present some history of the Indigenous peoples in our valley just last night to City Council in anticipation of the Return of the Boise Valley People event that begins tomorrow and runs through the weekend. And so I think that we're beginning to see some traction from the city. The mayor is putting a lot of support into that relationship. And I think it's really great to see where that's going to follow through. And of course, I couldn't have done any of that without all the groundwork that Tilly Bug has been doing over the years. So I just wanted to let you guys know that that had happened and that felt like a really good use of our department's time and resources. So just wanted to let you know about that. And of course, happy to, if anybody wants to talk more about that or wants to see the presentation, I'm happy to send you those slides at another time. We also had another, I think, big win last night. You may remember that I made some, Tilly and I also have been working on revisions to the Percent for Art ordinance. And we did the final presentation with the final draft to City Council last night, and they did their first reading. So there were no, to my knowledge, changes that were requested at that point. So I'm going to give you some details about that today. And then just give you a brief budget update as well. And then I'll tell you a little bit about a fun lobbying trip that I took to DC, which you guys might find interesting. And then tell you a little bit about the internal goings on at the department. There we go.
So the percent for our ordinance provision, like I said, was presented last night, and really there were a couple of key goals there. We wanted to clarify the language regarding the 1% versus the 0.4%. Which has been a little bit murky since the time it was first passed, and we wanted to make the funding more predictable for maintenance. And I'll show you a couple of graphs, but really the maintenance dollars have been very volatile over the years because of their connection to and calculation on the capital improvement projects that the city makes. And so as you grow a collection and it gets bigger and bigger, you can't sort of say, well, this year you only get $20,000 to care for it, and next year you get $400,000. Doesn't work that way. So we wanted to streamline that. We also were hoping to, of course, align the ordinance with the current department vision, which includes history. And so we wanted to do that. We wanted to broaden the public art definition so that we could basically track with the trends in the arts field, include things like public art, temporary art, like the traffic box wraps, which of course we're doing, but which isn't really expressly permitted in the way that the ordinance is currently written, as well as things like performing art and that sort of thing. And then finally, we wanted to update the procedural language, which still reference the budget process every 2 years, even though the city actually does year now. So those are the opportunities. This slide. There we go. This is just another way of explaining what I just said. And what we essentially did is we took the 1% of capital expenditures, which again, only allowed for public art spend, only allowed really for permanent art spend, and didn't recognize the mission, and instead moved into an art definition that broadens what we can do and also allows us to spend on archives and artifacts, as they are all nested under a new term called cultural assets. And then also in the existing ordinance, the 0.4 that is not automatically calculated, but which is supposed to be sort of negotiated each year during the city budget process, includes things like education, project management, planning, and maintenance. So what we've done instead is do a flat calculation in the new ordinance of 1.2%, so upping that from 1%, allowing that money to be spent on these other things I just mentioned, plus education, project management, and then taking the maintenance piece out. So the care and maintenance team, the conservation care team, has spent particularly a lot of Virginia has been, he's kind of come in on the back end and helped him finish that out. They've really worked on putting together a 5-year maintenance so that the expenses on an annual basis are clear. There are some things that they identified need to happen every single year. There are some things that only have to happen in 5 years, and some things that only have to happen in 10 years. And they looked at the costs of those things, and we provided an average. So maintenance includes a lot of things, right? And it's not just going out and cleaning bronze. It's also things like documentation and record. It's things like inspection. It's exhibit rotation, so that you can take a piece of art off the wall, store it in a space so it's not getting hit by ultraviolet light or whatever else, and give it a rest. So maintenance includes a lot of different things, and the team put together a maintenance plan upon which we based the numbers that we show. Yes, Commissioner Ashley.
How does who covers the maintenance? How is that negotiated with the project? So for example, if they're on the library as opposed to like the watershed, as opposed to with like CCDC and so on. So like is that negotiated when that's project is being undertaken? That is beyond just a 5-year preventative maintenance. If you could just, I'm super curious about.
Yes.
If you talked about that in the past, you can say go with it.
Oh, no, I don't think we have talked about that in the past. So we're moving to a model where that exact thing happens when we are commissioning the art. So for instance, right now, the public art team is working on 521 West Road Street place, which is a space that has a big piece of public art. And correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, we haven't been getting these conversations too well, but part of the negotiation with CCDC, although CCDC is going to sunset with that district, so they won't do that stuff. But they give us a budget right up front that we are sort of making sure we work with the artist to ensure that we can support whatever those maintenance needs are with the 5-year maintenance as this team has laid down. In other words, we don't want to accept a piece of art that is going to be so far out of the realm of this that we can't, as a city, support a budget for it. So we're sort of, it's beginning to, and it was part of the reorganization that I talked to you all about a few months ago, but bringing the care and conservation team into the public art team allows that to be a streamlined process so that care and conservation is at the table when the artist designs. Okay. For exactly that. So that was a very long-winded answer. I was kind of thinking out loud, but that's essentially part of the reason for that rework. Yeah, it's perfectly.
And can I add to that just a tiny bit?
Please.
Like the library, if it's general city.
Oh, yeah, we got
funding,
that part.
So if it's a library, it will automatically come out of the way that it's going to be done in the future is you're negotiating on the operations side a budget amount. So what Jimmy and Elagio have identified, we're paying for that. The library is not paying for maintenance. So we're considering that's part of our collections at the library.
Okay. Okay.
And so actually, there's going to be some graphs in these next couple slides that may answer some of those questions in terms of the budgeting question that might help you see that. So
one of the things,
Sure.
like public works and the airport, for instance, a lot of the art is integrated into the facility. So in those cases too, and the parks to some extent as well, those agencies will do some basic care of those in their day-to-day things. But if something special is needed, that's when Neil and Elagio come in and we'll pay for that. But regular everyday care is done by the facilities where the work is.
And that part would be part of the maintenance, the 5-year maintenance.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And let me say one more thing about that. So the part of the purpose of putting a 5-year maintenance plan in place is to do preventative regular maintenance so that we are hopefully preventing big problems with our art pieces, right? So Pink Tree, let's just take that as an example. We've had some issues with
Yes,
like the swing and something with it. And I don't know if it's a great example, but there may be other pieces like that in our collection that if we oil it or check the electrical on a regular basis, we won't be hit with a surprise big cost item that's really a repair as opposed to maintenance, right? And so that's also part of the reason that we are proceeding this way. And it also makes the funding for council predictable on an annual basis so that they know what the budget ask is going to be on a regular basis. And if they're not hit with 1 year, well, we've got this major problem, it's going to cost $100,000 to fix.
So that becomes the PR problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I put this graph together just so you could see kind of what part of what we were dealing with and part of the problem that we were trying to solve, which is our capital spend at the city varies wildly from year to year, just depending on what the priorities are and what the revenues are. And so, you know, again, you can't, as you grow a collection, you can't, you know, 1 year have less than $50,000 while another year have up to 400,000. It doesn't really work. And just, this is probably a little in the weeds for your taste, but this particular, you can't rebudget these dollars, maybe you can't carry it over from year to year. So that makes it a little challenging. So and I apologize to Councilwoman Haynes, who saw all of this last night, is probably sick of hearing about percent for art. So this just is a graph to show that the current spending, if we were to get that 0.4%, the maximum every year, that's the orange graph or the orange bar here versus the new flat fee is going to, or the new flat calculation is going to be 1.2%. So that's the purpose of that calculation. And then this next graph adds in with the dark I guess, purple line there in the middle. That adds in the estimated maintenance budget that is based on that 5-year maintenance plan. And what this essentially shows is that there are some years where the 1.2 flat calculation plus the maintenance dollars that we've figured is going to be less than what it would have been before. And then there are some, this is not actually correctly. This is not the same slide I used last night. In any event, the numbers, the bars are correct, the legend is not quite correct, but that's okay. The point is, the middle one shows, this dark one here shows that some years it's gonna be more and some years it's gonna be less, but it's not, and this is the key point, it's no longer gonna be dependent on that CIP spend, right? Making sure that we care for the collection. So. Any questions on percent for art and the changes there? The procedure is basically now, if I'm correct on this, that there's going to be 2 more readings and then this will actually go into code.
So where are the maintenance fees?
So every year during the budget process, we, it's part of what happens during the budget process. We work with the budget office and the Department of Finance and Administration, and we tell them what the needs are, and then it gets built into the general fund. And then the mayor proposes that budget to council, and then council hears the various presentations that all the directors do, and then make a decision in June. Yeah, it's nice whether or not that's budget. So it's taxpayer funded. It's
But above and beyond that 1.2.
yeah, that's correct. Okay. Yeah, that's the maintenance dollars come out of, and that's how we, just to give you some context, that's how we care for all of our assets in the city. So it's not just art, it's all of the playground. It's all of the, I'm gonna get a little out of my lane here, but essentially, we're gonna start treating our assets, our cultural assets, the same way we treat all of the assets throughout the city. So we are no longer doing things differently, but we are streamlining it so it's predictable, and we don't have to every year explain, we're different because of this, or we're different because of that. It's like, no, we're the same, and we need to care for these assets the same way we care for all the rest of the city's assets.
Well, I think that's great. I think, it's been really a long time coming. I mean, there's this discussion sort of been bannered about for a long time. So I think it's great to see the progress on it.
Seems very sustainable, like a lot of it, thoughtfulness, like a thoughtful consideration has been put into how to keep it sustainable.
And dependable.
Yeah.
I'm also very excited to see the expansion beyond just thinking about permanent art in a different way and a better way of thinking about what cultural assets actually means. That's fantastic.
I think some of the things that this frees us up to do is that we haven't been able to use percent for our funds from the past, or to do changing exhibitions of history or archive or individual artists material. So at the airport, there's lots of opportunities right now. I've been interviewing the library directors, and there's of all the branches. There's a great interest there in changing exhibitions as well. So, and then being able to showcase, I think, things from our archive and our history program. In our public spaces, and we haven't really had the funds with the contracts that.
Thank you for your support. We're really excited about it. I agree with you. I think it's going to be a sustainable program. I think it's going to make things frankly easier from a defensibility. Not that we need to defend our stuff. Typically people love our stuff, which is great. But I think you're right. I mean, the more professionalized we can be, the more we can play by the rest of the city. I think the better off we are as a department. And more support. So on the budget issue, I just wanted to bring you some information about the mayor's budget that's being proposed to council as it relates to our department. So we have the mayor accepted our request for moving the history programs assistant from 1.75 position to a full 1.0 position. So we're hoping that council approves that. We also asked for, you may know that our city archivist currently has contractor is working part-time, and is fantastic, but as you all know, we have an incredible backlog of material and a lot of work moving forward that we want to do. So we did get funding, to make that person a full-time contractor, with the hopes that we can turn that into a full-time position, sometime in the next year or two at the latest. So stay tuned on that. We did also get, approved again from the mayor. It hasn't been passed by council yet, but for 2 professional archival scanners, again, the goal being to scan a lot of these things so that it can be made accessible to the public, right? And then finally, and this is sort of exciting, we got approved for an entire remodel of the entire downstairs space where we own office. So those are all the things that are going to be coming forth in the budget that council will be entertaining, I believe, in June sometime. So I want to pause there and see if there are any questions.
Congratulations. It's nice.
And actually, I should add, I missed it on this, but to implement the cultural plan, the master arts plan of the airport, the airport director has also requested, and the mayor has also proposed to council a full-time airport arts coordinator to the airport as well. So it should have been on my slide. It's not my budget, it's her budget. And so I sometimes forget that, but that person will be sitting on our team, just like Hannah is sitting on our team, even though she is directly working for Public Works. So
Is that a long-time permanent position, or is it just for the?
it's a full-time position.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty excited about. Okay. Really briefly, I'll just tell you that I got a really interesting phone call about a month and a half ago from Americans for the Arts, and they invited me to Washington to meet with Idaho's congressional delegation to do some lobbying for the work that we all do here on the ground. So Congressman Simpson is actually the chair of the Interior Appropriations for the House, and that is the committee that oversees National Endowment for the Arts funding, as well as NEH humanities funding. And so I got some great training while I was back there. They did a really great job of sort of telling us how to talk about the issues, give us a lot of really great materials. And I had a fantastic meeting with Congressman Simpson. You probably already know he is a huge supporter of the arts. He himself is actually a watercolor painter. I gave him all this information about the economic impact, and he sat there and said, you can use that information on other people, but you don't need to do that with me, because I just love the arts for the purpose of the arts, and I don't need to hear about the economy and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he was fantastic. I think that the way AFTA presented this to those of us who were in the room, I was there with somebody from Portland, somebody from Florida, somebody from California, and somebody from Texas, all of whom were meeting with different members of the committees that were working on these issues. They really have to sort of explain to all of us that they really are hoping to help us establish relationships with these congressional delegations. I did meet with Senator Risch as well briefly. And we've got some maybe more work to do there, but I still think it's exciting. And I think that, you know, he can be a great supporter as well. I think probably the most interesting thing is how that work is now going to be perhaps expanded upon here locally. So I met with some of the local cultural leaders here today, and there is some interest in deploying a similar model here at the State House. And so stay tuned for that. We'll see if that goes anywhere. But I think that that same model of sort of targeting individual legislators that serve on the important committees and stuff can help us get ahead of some issues that we care about and do some really good advocacy work here instead of being on the defense, which, you know, sometimes in the past arts and culture has been. So yeah.
Yeah, one of the things like I'm super fuzzy on until I was this too is I'm not always clear on like what the relationship is between Americans for the Arts, the NEA, the Idaho Commission on the Arts, and then how we like operate as like a local arts agency. and like what the funding, what that whole thing looks like. And
Sure.
I don't know if now is the time for that or if it's a future kind of conversation, because I know I would love to know more about how that operates at like our state level and how that impacts what happens here.
Sharon, do you want to, I can briefly answer.
I think we're good on time.
Okay. So briefly, the Americans for the Arts is an advocacy organization, so they are advocating at the at Congress for the money for the NEA, and that was really the focus of the time that I spent with Congressman Simpson is talking about those dollars. NEA's budget, I believe it's either 40% or it's 60% of their entire budget then gets disseminated to the state organization. So Idaho Commission on the Arts gets a huge chunk of their funding from the NEA through that state sharing program. We as a city agency don't have anything to do with either the Idaho Commission on the Arts or the NEA. But of course, we serve many of the same constituents in the same groups. And so it's, it's very important for us to have the city, to have great relationships with Idaho Commission on the Arts and the NEA, and people who support those, because they're supporting the members of our community that need that funding. So the more
We
funding,
get about an $8,000 grant from ICA a year.
and that, which helped us this year fund some travel and some professional development, and has funded other things. I thought it was 11,000.
It varies.
Okay.
So City of Boise, the arts, is it considered a local arts agency? Is it considered a local arts agency? And so is that the money that we're talking about here that we get? And that's not, and that comes from ICA, it's totally separate from AFTA as sometimes a facilitator of funds. Okay, correct. Thank you very much.
We already did the welcoming of the new staff. I want to bring you up to speed. We are in the middle of interviews for the Grants and Public Programs Manager right now, and hope to have that hire made by the end of next week. We are also currently hiring. Travis gave us his resignation a couple of weeks ago, and so we are actively hunting for our next history programs manager. So please help us spread the word. The position has been posted.
What you doing, John?
And then, as I mentioned earlier, we'll also be working on hiring, probably not for another 6 to 9 months, for the airport arts coordinator, but that will be coming in the next fiscal year. Happy to answer any questions on those points.
And all those jobs, they're posted, right?
The grants program manager has closed.
Okay.
So that's not posted, and the histories program manager is currently posted. Yes,
Did we get quite a few applications for the grants?
we did. I want to say 27.
Great.
That number's sticking in my head.
How does the hiring process work at this level? Do you have to have representation from different departments outside of arts and history? How do the decisions get? I'm just curious about the process and decisions, and
Sure.
clearly how different it is from the university.
Yeah. So for the grants and public programs manager, there's nobody outside of the department that's on that team. So that particular position will report up to Jennifer Wybar. It'll be on Jennifer's team. And so we are currently, Mackenzie Gunston is also on Jennifer's team. So she's doing the interviewing alongside Tilly, who's serving as the interim grants manager, and Jennifer Wybar. So the 4 of us are doing the interviews. We start with teams, 30-minute interviews, and then we've asked the finalists back for interviews. For Hannah's position, which was in both Public Works and in our department, we actually did have Public Works people on that team that helped us with that hire. So. Anything else?
Do you feel like, I'm trying to be sensitive about asking the question. In general, for city hiring, do you feel like the city salary levels are where they're at to attract the quality candidates that you want to look for? Do you feel okay about how that's all going?
So that is not an easy yes or no answer, even though it was phrased as a yes or no question. It depends on the position. And I would say that right now, just to give you some insight into what's happening in the city, right now, HR is actually doing a huge classification and compensation study and has done a survey, and it has an outside firm that's working on that, who has been working on it for like, I want to say about 9 months. And we are expecting the outcome of that in the next 3 to 4 months. In the mayor's budget, there is, in her proposed budget, there is if I'm not mistaken, a 2% across the board increase proposed for next year, as well as a one-time merit increase for everybody, or to be dispensed among the team accordingly. Some of our positions, and I tackled some of this in the reorganization that we just went through. Some of our positions were underpaid, no question about it, and still are. And some of our positions were not paid properly for what they were, and actually were overpaid for what the job was. So we are trying to sort of level set that. But the city is aware that the city organization, the staff is, the HR people and mayor too, is aware that our salaries are probably lower than they would like them to be. However, there's incredible compensation, and so there's a lot of benefits that come with the city. And so there's, you know, and so their HR, I'm out of my lane, but HR has sort of a formula that they use to determine what compensation is for each position based on a lot of information. So it's not like sort of just random. We do a very good job, very professional job. Okay, so we do have a lot of upcoming events. Most importantly is the one coming up tomorrow, and then leading through the weekend. So we have been doing the Mackenzie Dunstan on Jennifer's team has been continuing the historic house tours that is virtual across the nation. And if you haven't been to one of those yet, I'm sorry. I mean, you are free at 4 o'clock on a Thursday. They're super fun and really, really interesting. You get to see places you wouldn't, if you're not going, you know, physically, you get to see those. And then, of course, the return of the original Boise Valley people starts tomorrow. There will be a ceremony on Boise City Plaza tomorrow from 7 to 8 when the mayor will be there. And then on Friday, there will be time from 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 in the afternoon at Eagle Rock Park, used to be known as Quarry View Park. Helps you place it on Warm Springs, and that's going to be open to the public with remaining time. It's private. And then I won't go through all of those, but you can see there on the screen. Many of our grantees are there and will be active. You know, summer is very busy for our people. And all of this is also in the newsletter that generates. So, okay. So when it comes to commission requests, we have a few of them, and would love to know what your thoughts are. So first, I already mentioned I'd love to have you guys to please spread the word about the history programs manager, and start teasing about the public arts coordinator that's going to be working out for the airport and implementing that plan. We're also wondering how you all feel. I know you're all looking for, or have been looking for, opportunities to get involved, and the public arts team has been doing a great job of starting to standardize our public art tours. And it occurred to me that one of the ways that we could really use your help, or use your help maybe finding other volunteers, is to start giving some of those tours. And I wanted to just see what the interest level is of that. My thought is that as we standardize those tours, we can start building capacity so that we can get more tours. So when we find that we get inundated by requests for tours on kind of a one-off basis from schools or various companies that are having an offsite retreat or whatever, we get a lot of that kind of thing. But if we offer them more regularly, we hope that might cut down on costs, right? And permit us to utilize our commission a little bit more, find some volunteers. I'm hoping eventually to reach out to the School of the Arts of Boise State and actually start an annual recent class. That, you know, the students can put on their resumes, and actually be known as, I was in the Joseph class of 2024 or whatever. So that it's a thing, it's not just sort of like, volunteers or ad hoc, but more structured than that. So, but I just want to throw that out there and see if there's interest in the commission in giving some of these tours, how it might work for you. You know, and I'll just stop there.
It's maybe like we get to pretend that we're like Stephanie and what Kelly used to do.
I want a jacket of something. We can do that, make that.
Are they, because I've only ever gotten the live version of both of their incredible Carl's like greatest thing that's ever been in history. Not to oversell it or anything, but does it talk about the ways in which those programs are part of like urban development or like the history of Boise? Or are they more that these are the materials that we use, this is why this site and so on? I'm just that influences how I might would love to do it and be fit to do it as opposed to a way in which I would.
When I went, it was, here's the art and the history behind it and why it's in this spot. I don't necessarily remember any of the. I mean, certainly how it fits in the current landscape. I don't necessarily know like the other side of art that you would be better at.
Tilly, I haven't actually been on one of the new tours, so
I haven't been involved in the standardization process.
Okay.
So I can't answer that either.
Okay.
I'd be willing to learn more.
Yep.
What I would say, having been down this path. A little bit is that and in this case, it was Brandy who did the work from a history perspective. And it was not onerous, and it was done in such a way that you can anticipate that this would be the same way that any of us could give them, no matter what our starting point was. It's, you know, I think it's fun. Instead of jacket, though, I would want a Camelback because it's
True. Build back into the jacket, but it's like a air jacket situation, and then once a month you have to take a drag maybe. That just becomes a
Traveling jacket.
yeah.
It's a lot of work for me.
Well, John, did you get the jacket right? Or refill the Camelback.
it was super hot. That's all I really.
Like
But I think
band parents
the-
giving people ice.
But I would, I mean, for me, I would be encouraging around pursuing the strategy because it's something that I know everyone would be able to deliver if it fit into their life and into their interest.
I think just to follow up with that, I have a few questions and then just one thing I'd like to ask, but I'll come to that at the end. So I guess my first question would be, how is the schedule set for them already? And how often do they run?
So the schedule is only set currently for our public art team to give these tours, and that schedule is set. So it would, I mean, in my mind, we would not just call you up and be like, hey, can you give a tour? But that we would add to that schedule in ways that you could actually put it on your calendar, right? So right now, I think they're the first Saturday of.
Yeah, once a month. They're 2 30-minute tours. I actually shadowed Leanna last month at the watershed. And the first one was at 10 o'clock. I think it was 10 to 10:30. And then the next one was at 12 to 12:30. And so there were the 2 tours, but I think can maybe be open to so one person does one and then another person does the other. And it was scripted, so she shared the paper with me, and so she went over like the artist, the material, the concept, and when it was installed for each object. And we went and just did like the 30-minute walking tour, received some questions from the public, but it was really nice, and I think it was something that we could do like an initial walkthrough, like meet a couple days beforehand to kind of familiarize with the route to take, and then just create that the the like understanding of what we're saying and like how we're saying it. And it was really nice to have a second person to sort of like, I held the flag and she talks. I'm familiar with the tour, so to have somebody like hold the little like public art tour flag and to like watch for cars at the watershed in the future. If there could be two people to facilitate, I think it would be really nice.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say, yeah, we wouldn't throw you into this without training you.
I used to do preservation, I know ones occasionally, and so it's pretty easy to learn on the fly, I feel like, but, so and then it, like, would the plan with expanding the availability of the tours? Would that be included where like, let's say if I'm signed up for like a Sunday or something, have you guys thought about if that would mean like 2 tours on that Sunday, or would we just be committing to 1, or would it be open?
So the way I sort of envision this is that you guys tell us what works for you, not at this moment, right? But that maybe I work with John for him to sort of communicate with you all to see what works for you. In my own experience being on commissions, you know, you're already committing a lot to being here at commission meeting once a month and like following, you know, we ask you to go to events. So we want to be mindful of your time, but also you've asked to be more involved. So I would say, you know, we would want to make it so that it worked for you all, and that you're helping us bring things to the public in whatever, basically anything that you would do at this point would be additive.
Okay,
So
for myself, I would be interested, I would probably want to do maybe like once a month of a commitment, maybe not depending. And I guess I'm thinking about this a little bit through the perspective of how we did it at Preservation Idaho, because we just scheduled the dates and then just asked our docents to give it. And that would be kind of nice just to be told, like, here's a framework of what we're looking to fill. Or just like sitting down and looking at a calendar together and being able to look at, okay, what am I available with and what coincides with what you're looking for? So yeah, I think that's how I would probably want to go forward with it, logistically, but yeah.
and I think the more regular it is, probably the better it is for everyone, the public, because they know what to expect, and you all, because you know what to expect.
I'm super interested.
Just had maybe a follow up to that. I was just curious, since you said you've got a lot that have come in, like special requests, whether that has lent some additional items nowadays. You know, an ideal time is there evenings during the weekdays if they're doing more. I just think about like our leadership retreats, right? And doing it on a weekday all day, and then, you know, I'm just curious if that shifts or if it's a purely weekend.
So Tilly might be able to better respond to that. To my knowledge, it's always been on weekends, right? Is that correct?
The public tours are scheduled on weekends. I'll do, I'm responsible for the renegade tours.
Non-standardized. She knows it.
Yeah. So I'll do like Jack, whatever. She's coming in with a group from Sun Valley next week. I'll do a tour for them. So it depends on the that's interested in leadership. Voicing, we've done tours for them before, so that's during the week. But I think we're trying to standardize them. Leadership, we see if that's what
I can tell you the date. Sorry.
And with that, like, I'd be comfortable being on call for tours also during the week if I could work with stuff.
I was gonna say, because if there are enough groups at your meetings, ID associated with, definitely associated with, no people on. There's a roll call, hey, we have this request, and we need to fill it before we have the staff. Because I could probably do the leadership with you one, that's on it. You want some help? Just like I had some, I guess. Anyway.
We could provide some for you on your Medicaid.
So I have 2 questions. One is, so I see art tours, great. And the history guy here, so stuff that has, this is incorporated history to it, and then the other thing I point out. To me, it's like. I did this for HB. So we have these people come in, it's like, what they're gonna, let's go back to our hotel rooms and do meetings. So we would make people sit there down, you know. And to me, it's all the same as these things, architecture, art, history. That in allows you to get to this physical. Plan, so I would just suggest. Say public art. Is that really true? Check.
I call it arts and history tour. That's what I went on to be perfectly here, like when I signed up for a public art tour. Art, history, architecture.
I think that's is perfect.
Yeah, and I think that leads into one of the, like, and I don't, concern isn't the right word, but. I think with that, I feel very adamantly also about wanting to like protect what Preservation Idaho has put together for their tour. Yeah, try to maintain a degree of separation and what's covered, just because that's the primary part of their funding, like systematic funding each year. So I like that idea too, of like incorporating art history into the spots that are already there, maybe, or like the wider story that's told. And I think it'd be valuable, and I think that from my understanding that Arts and History Department has already done this, but just bringing them in for conversations when that's expanding, I think can be really valuable too.
So let me just respond to both of you briefly, or all three of you. So we are actually also kicking off doing history tours. Quite different than what Preservation Idaho does. I mean, no architectural history, certainly. And so not that we couldn't, but like we don't have the expertise really on staff, and our staff anyway. Planning and Development Services does, but you know, our staff doesn't. But we are kicking off history tours, and the idea being that we would follow the same model, right? So give regular tours and engage the commission. So I'm actually in the midst of talking with a contractor to help us. We have a ton of content already that we just need somebody to sit down and make a tour with. So if anybody's been on the Clio app, John, have you been on the Clio app? No,
I'm an
okay.
analog guy in a digital world.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, we're gonna allow for self-guided tours as well as doing it in person. So we're looking forward to that, and that's in the works.
I can also be a guinea pig for testing out the personal tour. Yeah.
So that's great. Thank you guys so much for your feedback on that. I really appreciate it, and stay tuned. We'll follow up on more of that. More immediately. I mean, like immediately, meaning I need like actual humans to raise their hand and say, yes, I'm totally in. The American Association for State and Local History, as you probably have seen in the past, is bringing its annual conference to Boise this year. The city is sponsoring that. You'll see our logo at the booths and that sort of thing. We're also giving several tours. We're on the local arrangements committee. And we need volunteers. So, yay. So the staff you can obviously volunteer as much or as little as you want. The shifts are going to be in 4-hour chunks, and we need 80. Not obviously, I'm not the only one asking people for this, right? But they generally speaking need 80 people. I will be there from the morning of the 6th through the end of the 9th. This is a big thing for us, and we would really love the commission to get involved if you have time, or even one volunteer shift would be great. So I would love to either see, I saw Chris's hand go up, I saw Gabby's hand go up, Amanda's hand go up. So that would be awesome. Whoever can volunteer would be.
So do you have a feel for what the hours actual hours are, if it's an evening thing too.
I do believe there's gonna be evening shifts as well, because there's everything from tours that start, we have one tour that starts actually from our department at 7:30 in the morning. So there's all sorts of stuff happening, and then there's evening events as well. So if that's, if that suits you better because of your schedule, and then I think that the conference, if I'm not mistaken, the 9th is Saturday. So that may work for you as well. So you don't have to like tell me when you can do it or how many shifts or anything like that, but just if I can actually say, yes, Gabby is interested, yes, Amanda, yes, Chris, yes, John, we can work the details out for sure.
Yeah.
No problem.
That sounds great.
What do you think is tough?
Say it again?
What are the like sign-in table, leading one of the tours?
No, not leading the tours. That sort of stuff is all being taken care of. It's like helping with registration and helping like guide people to the right rooms. She gave me a list of things that I'm forgetting right now, but it's that sort of thing. It's, badge around your neck. People can ask you for help.
Roughly, do you know how many people? We have
800. Yeah,
It's great.
a lot of people. So the department's giving tours of our castle and Haman. And I will be giving a irrigation tour starting at Anderson, Arrow Rock down to, I didn't plan it, so I just know that I'm gonna be doing it. So that's gonna be like a half-day tour. So, and I think there's gonna be a mining history tour too, which I'm not doing. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome. And we also have a panel that is being done by our team on the Ermine House, and how that all came to be. So really excited for that.
Do you know when that will be at?
I don't. The schedule is supposed to come out in the next couple of weeks, and so I will certainly let you all know what happens.
For the volunteer meetings, do we need an email to make sure you guys have us on the list, or you guys will just reach out to us with the dates?
For volunteering, for that,
Yeah.
I will put you on the list
Okay.
and make sure that it's the folks over at the Idaho State Historical Society that are on the arrangements committee as well. And they're the ones managing that process. Okay, so yes, I will be sure to get you on that. Please hold the date for Mayor's Award for Excellence in Arts and History, September 21st. I hope you all are able to make that. We are going to be holding that at the Tree Fort Music Hall. Jillian has been working extremely hard with the rest of the team to get the details nailed down for that. So we're super excited. You want to say anything about that? Should be great.
With food, Life's Kitchen, music, from BSU Jazz Band, as well as a 5x5 reading. We have some great categories that we're gonna start nominating for. So,
It's a great event. I mean,
It is
it's
cool.
super.
from 6 to 8, doors opening at 5.
Awesome.
And a great new. Yeah.
Is that the one that actually has the flagpole out front or not?
The depot, in Bono, where the old
Office Depot.
Oh, do you need the event?
No, I mean, the one in previous years.
Oh, it's during COVID, it was held on the plaza.
Yes, okay.
Yes, but in past years, no.
Okay.
That was like.
Train Depot.
The train depot.
It's been at the depot, it's been over at the Boise, what used to be the Boise Cascade building. We're also in the middle of the grant cycle, so what am I supposed to tell people?
If there's anyone who's interested in, I'm reviewing grant applications or I'm talking through grant ideas with people. So if you know anyone who's interested in applying, let them know. I've reviewed 20 applications so far. So, and we've got 2 that are submitted. The 16th is the deadline.
Okay.
It's for projects and events.
Did open arms apply?
I haven't seen their application yet and they haven't had me review their grant.
Okay, because I don't think they did last year, so. I thought they didn't last year.
Because we were doing thing where they have to, if they get it 3 years in a row, then they have to. do it.
We're not doing that again.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We've thrown that out.
So we should get that out.
I identified the organizations that it would have impacted and notified them.
Okay.
Yeah, and Gabby and Chris are both sitting on the panel, so thank you very much.
And thank you, Melissa, for being on the selection panel 521.
That was such a hardship.
That was pretty awesome. So thank you for your work there. Mr. Chair, that's it. That was a lot. That actually took a lot longer than I was expecting. Guys.
Yeah, see, that's my bedtime.
Yeah, but the power gonna go out.
That's good.
No, and I want to say thanks for, I think, moving it to 5 o'clock. Personally, I think it's great, and I mean, I know there's no perfect time. So I hope this works well. If it's a hardship for anyone, then let's please talk about it. So any questions or other comments from the commission? Sophie, how about you? Okay. Not to put
No,
you
it
on
was
the
just good to
spot.
like, good overview, just like know what's going on. Thanks, Jen.
You're welcome, Sophie.
Wow, playing with the fur ball.
He
Okay,
liked it too. He just wanted to let you know.
thanks, Sophie. All right, so if there's no other questions or comments, then we will adjourn.